I actually, before I knew what I'm going to speak about tonight, I had a plan. About a month ago, we made a lecture by Mr. Sharifian's house, and there was knowledge in the oral Torah that indicated that everything the Chachamim, Chazal says, was all divine. Since it was, Baruch Hashem, a very packed night, and the lecture is very long, I only finished then half of it, which I have the other half, which is even better than the first half. That's what I really wanted to do today. But then Michael said that somebody here requested the Birkat HaChama, the blessing of the Chama, so I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to mix both of them. I'll mix both of them. I'll speak few words about this, and then hopefully it will come out good. As you know, when the world was created in 6 days, the fourth day is the day that Hashem created the sun, the moon, the stars. Stars, you have trillions of stars. If you really look at the size of the stars, you'll be very amazed. The earth, it's like a dot compared to the size of the other stars. For instance, comparing the sun to the earth, right? The world is a very big place, no? Just think about the world. You look at the world, how big it is. The world compared to the sun is like comparing this remote to the entire room. That's really the ratio. That's how small is the world compared to the sun. Soon we're going to see some figures, some numbers we'll be able to compare. In the fourth day of the creation, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the stars, the moon, and the sun. Then comes the famous question, in that case, how we had light from the first day to the 4 days. So there was 4 full days, 3 full days until Hashem created the sun, the world had light. The answer is, it was a different light. As the Torah explained, the first light that God made in the creation was a spiritual light. It's called Ora Ganuz. Why it's Ganuz? Ganuz means in Hebrew hidden. It was kept separately from the creation for the future to come for the righteous people. This light was such pleasure, such spiritual pleasure, that Hashem saw that it's better to keep this light for the next world, for the righteous people. Not everyone will have the right to enjoy this light. It's called Ora Ganuz. So for the first 4 days, we had that special light. People were able to see without the sun. After Hashem took that light away, He created instead the sun and the moon. The moon doesn't really give light, it's a mirror. The sun is sending lights to the moon, and the moon is like a mirror, sending it back. That's it. Now what's so special about this year? Everyone is very excited. Everyone is very excited of what's going to happen in a few days from now. Erev Pesach. Pesach is Wednesday night. Wednesday morning, the entire Jewish world will be very, very excited. In sunrise, something around 6 something in the morning, all the religious Jews all over the world will come out of the synagogue and make a special blessing when they see the sunrise. Why it's so special? Every 28 years, the cycle, the renewal of the sun comes every 28 years. Unlike the moon, that we have it once a month, every month we have the renewal of the moon. And the Gemara already said that the renewal of the moon can never be less than 29 days and a half and 2/3 of the hour, which is 40 minutes, and 73 parts of the second of the minute. So it gives us 29.530,589,0000. That's the exact number of the renewal of the moon. Just about a month, a little bit less. The sun, however, is a different story. The moon comes back to the same place where it was every 30 days. As the earth circled the sun every year, 365 days and 6 hours. 365 days, it's in the entire circle of the earth around the sun. It's not exactly even 365, it takes extra 6 hours, which we're going to understand soon, the calculation. But 365 days and 6 hours, this is the entire circle of our world around the sun. While the world is going around the sun, the moon goes around Earth, around our world. But at the same time, as we are in the center and the moon goes around us, the moon is also going with the Earth around the sun. Every 30 days it's finished is renewal, it's cycle that it comes, that we'll see the renewal of the moon. And in Judaism, the month goes by, Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of the month goes by the renewal of the moon, as the Torah told us. However, we have few problems. And without the divine information that we received in Mount Sinai, there was no way for us to know how to overcome these problems. I'll give you an example what I mean. If you know, Judaism goes based on the sun and based on the moon, together, combined. The Muslims go only by the moon, which is 354 days. The year of the moon is 354 days. The year of the sun, as I just mentioned, 365 days and a little bit. So that means there's 11 days and 6 hours difference between the year of the sun and the year of the moon, which gives us approximately, right, if it's 11 days difference every year, every 3 years, the calendar moves by a month, which means, for instance, if we would ignore that problem, the Muslims, which they go only by the moon, the Ramadan, the fast of the Ramadans, every year moves by a month in a calendar. So 1 month is going to be December, then January, then February. So it travels between summer and winter and spring. They fast in different climates, different weather. The Christians, because they go by the sun, they have to lower a little bit from the year, so they balance the difference by making February 29th every 4 years. Every 4 years you have one extra day, but that means every cycle of 4 years you have only one time February 29th. Three years out of the 4 you don't have February 29th. That means if you're born on February 29, age 60, you had only 15 birthdays. You lost a lot of gifts. Your day is not in a calendar. So you have a little defect here in the calendar. Comes the Jews have a problem. What's the problem of the Jews? Since they have to go by the sun and the moon, and the Torah says, in one sentence in the Torah, it says that Passover, Pesach, it's called Chag HaAviv, the holiday of the spring. That means, since the Torah is the only book that claim that if you're going to find one mistake in the Torah, it's the end of it. You don't need 2 mistakes. One mistake in the entire Tanakh and the Chachamim, that shows it's not divine. If it's not divine, then you cannot rely on it anymore. It must be 100%. If it's 99.9%, it's very nice, very impressive, but it's gurnished. It's nothing really. Why? Because we cannot rely on it. Therefore, comes the Torah and says, since we have a difference, and Passover must fall always on the spring, comes Hashem to Moshe and teach him how to overcome this physical problem that we have, astronomy. What does he tell him? Every 19 years, every cycle of 19 years, you have to add to the calendar 7 more months. Those 7 months will make sure that Passover will always fall on the spring. How does it work? If you know the Jewish calendars, every 2 to 3 years we have Adar Bet, an extra month. Some years in Judaism is 12 months, when we have only one Adar, Adar Aleph. Some years in Judaism, in the Torah, have 13 months. The Gemara asks, when a person rents an apartment, and he says, I'm renting it to you for 1 year, and he didn't know it's a leap year, Shana Me'uberet, that has 13 months. Did he mean 12 months? For instance, he told him $12,000 a year, upfront rent, for the entire year. And then he realized after a month that he has only 13 months this year. So he comes to him and says, hey, I meant 12 months. Say, well, I'm sorry, a year is a year, and the year now is 13 months. You have all kinds of arguments like this in the Gemara. That's not the time to discuss this. Just to give you an idea that some years are 13 months. Now, if Passover falls in the area around March, like now, like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, it's still cold. It's not spring yet. What do? We push another month into the calendar. By pushing Adar Bet, we postpone the month of Nisan, who just started a few days ago. We postponed it by 30 days. So it's going to fall in the spring. Next year, we don't need to postpone it. It's going to fall around April. The year after, the Chachamim used to see, if it falls too close to the winter, they push another month. And that's how a cycle of 19 years, the Christian and the Jewish day, every 19 years falls on the same date. All the other 19 years, it's different dates. But people that born in a certain Jewish date, every 19 years, they're going to see that the date and the Christian date and the Jewish date comes on the same date. This is the moon. That's why Passover is always in the spring. It must be in the spring. However, that's the moon. It's easy. It's every month. Since you do it every month, everybody knows the rules. The sun is a different story. It only falls 2 to 3 times in the life of a person, in average, because it's every 28 years. Every 28 years. So now it's coming. This year is the renewal of the cycle of the sun. It falls now this year. Now what's so special about these years? Only twice in the history, since the world was created, the renewal of the sun fell on Erev Pesach. Means hours before Leil Seder, before the Jews came out of Egypt. One time was the exodus of Egypt, when we had big salvation. One time when Haman. That's why all the rabbis and all the Jews in the world are very, very excited that maybe we'll be lucky this year to have the Geulah, the salvation. Maybe all of a sudden we hear the shofar of Eliyahu Hanavi, and we won't even have a chance to sit in Leil Seder because the Geulah finally will start. And then all the great things that the Torah and the Gemara spoke about will begin. Actually, my little son just asked me, he's 2 years old, 3 years old, he asked me, tell me, who is the bigger tzaddik? Eliyahu Hanavi or Mashiach? Why? It's a very clever question. So I asked him, why are you asking me this? He said, because Eliyahu Hanavi is coming to announce that Mashiach comes. So who's really greater? Eliyahu Hanavi that comes to announce that Mashiach comes, or the Mashiach is more righteous than him? It's complicated. It's really no answer for this. We don't know. 3 years old. We don't really know, you know. It's a very hard question. Yeah, when the kids grew up in different... It's a very hard question. Sometimes the kids ask you a question, you're embarrassed to show them that you don't really know. All right, so let's start. I want to show some of the things I just mentioned. This is really the cycle, how it goes. As you can see, the sun is huge. This is right here, Earth. This is the Earth right here, and this is the moon that goes around the Earth. Why the Earth goes around the sun, there's not only those 2 stars, there are many other stars. What we call the Milky Way, the 9 famous stars are going around the sun. I once gave an example that if people would only know about the movement of the stars, right away they become ultra Orthodox Jews. Without seminars, without lectures, just by looking at the movements of the stars, right away, you know, it's impossible that something like this move by itself. It's such a brilliant plan to the movement of all these giant stars as they move. Not only that, I give you an example what I mean. You know, those stars, they're always moving. And there are many, many systems of stars that moves together. Not 1 or 2. Millions of stars in a unit are moving together. And they always stay in the same ratio, the same tune. They're never missed a second in a year. None of them. Just look at our Earth. If the Earth will move 1 second slower, or while it's turning 1,700 kilometers an hour, which is about 1,100 miles an hour, 1,100 miles. If it will move sometimes a little bit slower, it's material. Today it didn't move so fast. I don't know, maybe there was wind, hurricanes, slowed the movement of Earth. Then all the watches will go to the garbage. You cannot rely on the watches. The watches can only be good if the Earth will always move, always in the same speed. If the Earth will change the speed, the watch will never show you the right time. You're going to think that sunrise is 7:12 when actually it's 7:19. After years, it's not going to show you the right time. And the Kriyat Shema, since it will interfere severely with Jewish law, it cannot move by a second. It has to be precise. That's enough for clever people to know that something like this that stand in space and move the entire system and never miss a second, something like this can never happen by itself. But that's nothing compared to what I'm telling you now. Listen good. Since all these stars are in movements, some of them are more than 1,000 times bigger than this world. Like the ball, I'll give you an example what I mean. Look at the movement of all the stars, right? They move. Look at each one of them compared to the size of the sun. This is a real ratio. It's like a dot. There's nothing really, if you put it one next to the other, it's like putting a little marble that the kids play with those huge giant balls that they play on the beach with. Put one next to the other, this is really the ratio. Now, while they move, always pieces are breaking. There are pieces who are breaking because there's a lot of pressure, and pieces, what we call asteroids, they are breaking from the stars and falling into space. So now imagine this little marble, which is our world, while it's moving in circle around the sun, there are many, many pieces from different stars who are constantly falling. Believe it or not, every 3 seconds, a piece is hitting our Earth. Every 3 seconds, a meteor, an asteroid, falls into our space. Why we don't feel it on our head? Because Hashem made us a protection. The atmosphere around Earth, that's what we call the atmosphere. If you remember the spaceship with Ilan Ramon, the astronaut, they had some kind of a defect in their spaceship, and when they entered the atmosphere, it's so hot that because it wasn't isolated in the right way, in 1 second they all burn, in less than a second. A millionth of a second, they burn. You couldn't find a piece from them, nothing. Why? Those spaceships are designed in a way that they will be able to protect them for entering the atmosphere. However, when the asteroids are falling, usually those asteroids are huge pieces of ice, 1,000 times, sometimes bigger than Israel. Take the size of New Jersey or Israel, multiply it by thousands. This is the sizes of these pieces. As they are falling, they are missing us by a little bit. We are going around and they keep falling. If one of them will just shave us a little bit, that's it. All of us will die in a second. Sometimes there are big pieces who are hitting our world. So how come we're not getting killed in 1 second? The atmosphere breaks it to trillions of pieces. And it falls like dust, snow. You don't feel it. It falls into space, on our head. We don't even realize. Twice in history, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to wake us up to see the miracles that He does for us every second. So one, in the beginning of the previous century, about 110 years ago, in Siberia, in Russia over there, in Siberia, one huge piece fell in the middle of Siberia. It rocked the entire creation, the entire world. All over the world, they felt it was a huge earthquake, tsunamis in the oceans. It rocked the entire world. And then one fell in Arizona. It made a hole in the desert 17 miles, the size of the hole. Imagine if it would fall in Manhattan or Queens or anywhere else. There will be 10, 20 million people died in a second. All the buildings are down. 5 buildings fell in September 11. United States was almost bankrupt from what happened in the world. Stock market, they shut it down. Imagine 5,000 buildings fall to the ground in 1 second, killing 20 million people. Disaster in the entire world, that's it. So it fell where? In a place that people don't live, in the middle of a very huge desert. It made a huge hole in the ground, just to show us what are we getting saved from. So just to give you an idea, what are we talking here about? Just imagine a guy that you tell him, all of us has a Uzi machine gun, automatic, and our job is to shoot you and kill you. And you have to run in a room back and forth, and we have to just shoot and kill you. Now imagine the guy is running back and forth from morning to evening, left and right, constantly, and we all shooting like this. Thousands of people, machine gun, and we don't hit him. Is it possible? What's the chance that this guy will survive 1 second? This is us. This is how we are in the world. Every 3 seconds, a piece is falling into our area. But the atmosphere protecting us. And the big pieces, since the atmosphere will not be strong enough to blow it to small pieces, they're just not hitting us. Because if one of them will hit us, that's the end of it. Sometimes you look at the sky, you see a line of fire. Like a line. And everybody said, make a wish. A star is falling. The stars don't fall. So what really happened? Some stars, they come close to the sun. And the stars are so big and they're all ice. They're all ice. Imagine a world, the entire world that we have, all ice. Now multiplied by 1,000. It's a lot of water. And come near the sun, the edge of those stars melting. But severely, because the temperature in the sun is 20 million degrees. 20 million degrees. We have 70 degrees, we cannot breathe. 20 million degrees. So once the stars go closer to the sun, it melts so much water, it's like spilling tons of water into space. And the light of the sun shows you all this water. So it looks like a torch. But it's really no stars falling. It's just the massive amount of ice. One of the interesting things I showed in the previous lecture, that the Torah says, then when God made the world, He separated, Eli, take it from him. He separated, you listening? He separated between thank you. He separated between the water above the atmosphere and the water below the atmosphere. הפריד בין המים שמעל השמיים, that's what the Torah says, והמים אשר מתחת השמיים. In Tehillim we read it every morning in Shachrit. Those who pray Shachrit, we say in one of the Mizmorim, Hallelujah, what we say, Hallelu, המים אשר מעל השמיים, והמים אשר מתחת לשמיים. The water above heaven and the water below. Which water above? Nobody understood. What is this? Where is water? Everybody were asking, all the scientists, all the generation, they were asking the rabbis, which water you have above heaven? There's only water here. 72% of the world is water. Where do you have water in space? Where? You have stars and that's it. You don't have anything else. Now, today they know that all these stars are full of ice. Some of them is pure ice from A to Z. Some of them is about 10 meters, like 30 feet ice on top. It's really ground. But since the temperature is so cold over there, so all the water on top, it's all ice. 30 feet ice. But for huge amount of ice, because it's 1,000 times bigger than this earth. So the Torah already told you, Chazal said, there are more water above heaven than water below, which means our world. Now, just give us an idea what's going on. This is more or less the sizes of the stars. Here, this is Earth, right here, that dot. Just that you understand. All right, now, some of the things I'm going to skip because I want to go to some other more interesting things. Okay, now when it's going to happen, it's a question if ladies, they're obligated to do this mitzvah or not. Every time when there's an argument if ladies have to do the mitzvah or not, the source of the arguments is if ladies are obligated to do mitzvot that depend on time. For instance, every mitzvah that is limited to a certain time, ladies are not obligated to do. Why? What's the connection between the cycle of time to the ladies' obligation? What does it have to do one with the other? Since ladies are taking care of the children, and when raising children, you don't have a routine schedule. One day the baby needs help at 7 in the morning, one time he needs it at 9, then he needs it at 11, then it's very difficult. Since you have responsibility to raise the children, whether breastfeeding or changing diapers or taking them to the doctor, whatever, then you cannot commit to a system of laws that depend on certain times. That's why Hashem told the ladies, you are not obligated to do. However, of course, if the lady does the mitzvah, she has an extra reward for it. Not like the men, but she still get a major reward. So a woman that says Shema Israel every morning and evening, if she didn't say, she doesn't get punished. It's not like she was obligated. But if she did, she earns a lot. What do you have to lose? If she can do it that day. Now, the renewal of the moon every month, the ladies don't have to do. Why? Because it comes in a certain time. We have X amount of days, from the 7th day of the month to the 15th day of the month. Then we say the Birkat Alvana. They are not obligated. And the ladies, they don't have an obligation to pray in a certain time. It's enough for them to pray once a day. They can choose. They can choose to pray in the morning, in the afternoon, whatever is convenient for them. That's it. If she chose, that's my routine time, that's it. That's her routine time. Sukkah, she's not obligated to sit in a sukkah. Lulav and Esrog, she's not obligated. Now we have an argument between the Sfaradim and the Ashkenazim. The Sfaradim say, since the Chachamim of the Sfaradim say, since the ladies are not obligated, they cannot make a bracha, because the bracha is a lie. What's the word of the bracha? Asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav etzivanu, to do. That obligated us and order us to do this mitzvah. It's a lie. He didn't order you to do this mitzvah. You cannot say it. Comes the Ashkenazim and say, no, it's not a lie. They are an integral part of the entire nation of Israel, even though they are specifically not obligated. Still, it's praising Hashem. Since it's praising Hashem, it's not a lie. She can do it. Sfaradim don't make the brachot. The ladies, when they take lulav, the Ashkenazi lady, they make brachot, also to sit in a sukkah. So this is just to give you an idea, the arguments between these. Now comes this mitzvah. It's mitzvah that connects to time. Every 28 years, you have from the sunrise 3 hours, 3 Jewish hours, not 60 minutes, 3 Jewish hours. What's the difference between a Jewish hour to a Goy hour? Depend. If it's in the summer, the Jewish hours are longer than the Goyish hours. The Goyish hours are always 60 minutes. You have 24 hours divided, obviously you have to have 24 hours in a day. So day and night, all together, if you take the cycle of 24 hours, it's always 60 minutes by the going. They don't care light, darkness, they don't care. The Jews, they have to take the hours of light and divide them to 12. And they have to take the hours of darkness and divide it to 12. In the summer, the hours of light are much longer. You have about 16 hours of the goyim light. So you take 16 times 60, whatever number you get, you divide to 12, because the day have 12 hours and the night have 12 hours. So a Jewish hour in the summer, it's up to 75 minutes an hour. So if they tell you 3 hours from the sunrise, you can say Shema Israel, it's not 180 minutes. It's 3 times 75, it's almost 4 hours. So if the sunrise was 7 in the morning, you have up to like 10 something. I'm just giving you an example. If it was 6, you have up to 9 something. Okay. In the night, in the summer, if the day hour will be 75 minutes, then the night hour will be 45 minutes. Because 1 hour from the day and 1 hour from the night, it's like husband and wife. Together they have to be 120, always. So if 75, you take 1 from the night, 120. In the winter, it's the opposite. An hour in the night, since the night is much longer, it can be 75 minutes. But an hour during the day, it can be 45 minutes only. So if they tell you in the winter, Kriyat Shema is 3 hours, It's 3 times 45. It's only 2 hours and a little bit in the winter. Okay, now, what makes the calculation that every 28 years we have the renewal of the sun? How does it go? Since how many weeks we have in a year? 52 weeks. 52, when we look at the entire amount of days, we have 365 and 6 hours. 364 divided to 7 gives you an even number. You have 1 day and 6 hours left over. 1 day and 6 hours left over, right? 365 and 6 hours minus 364. 364 divides by 7. But you have a day and 6 hours left over, which means that if you take 28 years times 1 and 6 hours, 6 hours is a quarter of an hour, you have to have, what do you say, mechane meshutaf, a common denominator. You have to be, so it will have to be 35. 35 divides by 7. I don't want to go and confuse you too much, but the calculation gives us 28 years. Every 28 years, the sun returned to the same exact place where it was in the creation of the world. For those who didn't know, there are people who can afford, when something like this happens, they take a special plane or they just fly to Israel to make the bracha in Israel, not here. Why? Because when we say where the sun was standing in the creation, that means in Israel, which is 7 hours before us. So when we're going to do this bracha here in America, it's really fake. When is the sun was? It was in Israel. When everything the Torah speaks about, it speaks about when Hashem says, for instance, it says in the Zohar that in midnight, in Jewish midnight, what's so funny? Jewish midnight could be sometimes 1 o'clock at night, right? So the Zohar said that in midnight, Jewish midnight, HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes down to the lower heaven. There is lower heaven and upper, like lower bridge and upper bridge, you know? So they have the lower heaven for special righteous people, and then you have Gan Eden Elyon. So it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes to have fun with the righteous people in Gan Eden Tachton, in lower heaven. What does it mean, Jewish midnight? Not like here, like in Israel. So that means here it's really 5 in the afternoon, 6, 5, depend. Understand? So we are 7 hours before. There's a lot of, if you start learning the difference between Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Israel, then you will realize that the mitzvot here compared to the mitzvot in Eretz Israel, it's like comparing a monkey to a person. It's really not the same. However, here is the good news. Here is I don't want to depress you. The good news is the same way the mitzvot in Eretz Israel count so much higher, the same way the sins in Eretz Israel are much more terrible, much worse. And since all of us is probably 90% sins and 10% mitzvot, include myself, because you don't really know how severe is the mission that Hashem gave us, we sometimes live in illusion. We think we're righteous, but we're very far from being righteous. So since we maybe have 10% mitzvot, 90% averot, we might as well be here, because the sins are not so heavy. All right, so let's move into the next part. It's better to stay here for now. When you feel you have more mitzvot than averot, then it's time to move on. Okay, all right, now. All right, let's see. Okay, attention. You see, this is first month of the pregnancy. The size of the baby is like a quarter, like a cookie. You know those round sandwich cookies? 99 cents a pack with margarine, lots of margarine. So this is the baby in the first month. After 40 days, the baby becomes a human being. Well, we mentioned it in previous lectures. Most abortions, by the way, are done in the 3rd month of the pregnancy, when without any doubt is a complete human being, with a nerve system, with pulse, with taste. They inject sugar into the mother's womb, the baby drink double. Before he's born, he likes Coca-Cola already, you know. And they pinched his nose, he moves his head. That means his nerve system is complete. After 4 times pinching the nose, in the 5th time he moves his head before they touch his nose, which means he already predict danger. And they killed in Israel, from the beginning of Israel until today, in 60 years, more than 2 million babies like this. Make 1 million families, million baby and another million, 2 million, put them together in families, 3 generations since then, we should have had another 50 million Jews today in the world. We are 13.2 million Jews, and all over the world they hear about us. Imagine another 50 million. What would happen? We missed it. That's what the Torah says, "Me'arsaich u'machrevaich memech yetz'u." All the problems that the Jews have come from among themselves. Nobody can harm the Jews. They are doing the job for the enemies. We're helping the enemies to destroy us. I'll give you an example. They're going to make now the Christian party for the Pope in Nazareth. They're going to cost Israel $6 million. We have to pay. The Vatican is the richest institution in the world. They have trillions of dollars hidden. They don't know what to do with that. Half of the real estate in America they own. Half of the real estate in Europe they own. They have so much money. And Israel, that poor country, has to pay for their mass, whatever you call it, $6 million. To secure, police and everything. Instead of charging them the money, if I would be the prime minister, I tell you, no problem, you can do it twice a week. It will cost you $60 million for the arrangement. At least we make money from their avodah zarah, for their nonsense. But not only we let them in, we're going to promote it for them and secure. All right, that's it. That's what we are. Now, let's talk a little bit about twins. Now I'm going to show you things that leaves no doubt that only God was able to write. This is 3,300 years ago. Nobody had the knowledge that we have today in science, in medicine. What we know today, what we found in the last 100 years, is shocking us. How the Torah was able to know all these things 3,300 years. For the clever Jews, there is only one way to understand it. Since nobody was able to know such a thing, no human being was able to write such a thing, we know right away the Creator of the world gave us this information. Okay, I'll give you some example here. As you can see, everything I say, it's right here on the screen. I'm going to read it directly from my screen. In many generations, everybody used to think that from one relation between a husband and wife, you could create only one baby, not more. And when people used to have twins 2,000 years ago, how they used to explain it? They used to think that it's from twice having relation, on Monday and on Thursday, each time conceived there with another baby. That's how they used to think. Then, after they invented the microscope, they started to understand that the baby is created from one seed, but they still didn't know what makes twins. They knew one seed, from all the seeds, there's millions of seeds, one of them will conceive with an egg and create a baby. But they didn't have an explanation, technically, how twins are created. Later, recently, with all the equipment that they have, all the computerized equipment, they found out that twins that are not identical, they are created from two different eggs. But identical twins are created from one egg that was conceived with one seed and was split to two. So it's one seed, go into one egg, and then later split into two halves, this egg. And that's why they're identical, because it's all the same DNA, everything the same. And this is something that they found after the year 2000, which is less than 8 years. This is not such an old discovery. The question is, do they really deserve the credit for it? Or the ancient Jews from the time of the Talmud, they already knew that? Let's see. Here is the source. In the Talmud, Masechet Nida, I always like to show the sources in case people are doubting it. They see the video, they go into the Talmud, they open and they read. Here is what the Talmud says. Maaseh v'nishtaha vlad echad achar chavero gimel chodashim. There was a case that one woman gave birth to one baby. And then the other twin, there's twins, was born 3 months later. Not 3 minutes later. 3 months later. תביא מים מהברז. And the Chachamim writes, right here in Masechet Nida, page 27, here are the Chachamim say, here are the twins in front of us in the yeshiva. What's their name? One is Yehuda, and one is Chizkiah, the son of Rabbi Chia. The Gemara says, "Ve'ain isha mitaberet ve'chozeret u'mitaberet." It's impossible that a woman is pregnant and getting pregnant again while she's already pregnant. It's impossible to duplicate pregnancy at the same time. The Gemara says, remember, this is 2,000 years ago. No telescope, no microscope, none of the computers that we have today, none of it, okay? And they said, Amar Abaye, Abaye says, it's one of the Chachamim, 1 drop it was, and it split to 2. One complete its shape in the beginning of the seventh month of the pregnancy, and one finished its process in the end of the 9th. So it was 2 months and change. One was born early. Sometimes women give birth in the 7th month. 8 months is more dangerous than the 7th month. 8 months is critical. But 7 months is okay, especially today with the incubators and all that. But the Abaye is saying something that there's no way to know 2,000 years ago unless if you got it from Mount Sinai, from the creator of nature, of people. 1 drop it was that was split and created 2 babies. Until 8 years ago, nobody knew it. The world, the scientific world, only finally found out with the equipment that they have that is 1 seed that created 2 babies. They used to think that it's 2 different ones. But now they never knew what makes identical twins. So now, here it is. Now, here is the next thing. The first doctor that used anesthesia, his name was Crawford W. Long. He lived from 1815 to 1878. That's about 200 years ago almost. He was born, he died about 130 years ago. Okay. In 1842, he used anesthesia for the first time. That's 160 years ago approximately. But he did not publish his discovery until in 1846, 4 years later, in the same generation, a different doctor, Dr. William Morton, he lived from 1819 to 1868. He found it on his own, with no connection. When God decides that something has to come, it has to come, one way or the other. First one found it, did not share it with public. Somebody else found it 4 years later and shared it to the entire world. The question is, did they really discover anesthesia? Or the Chachamim in the time of the Talmud already used to do operation with anesthesia? That's the question. According to the encyclopedias, everywhere you go, they have the credit for inventing anesthesia. Okay? He was a dentist, by the way. So, here you go. The Gemara says in Masechet Baba Metzia, page Pei Gimel, 83, Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, used to be very, very heavy man, very massive. Katafis Ganvi Ve'azil. His job was, he was an undercover detective. He was going around and catching Jewish thieves and turned them into the Romans. Because the Romans police, they used to own Israel, control Israel. Come, I have 2 more thieves for you. Why? They steal from Jews. They go, they break into houses, into farms, and the Jews don't have the power to fight with them. They're dangerous people. Let the Goyim do the job. Like today here, if another Jew threatens your life, you call the police. Protect me from him. So the Goyish police save one Jew from another. It happens every day. It's legal. Not allowed to turn a Jew to the Goyim for money, for IRS, or for doing something. But if he's risking your life or your property, then you're allowed to defend yourself by using the authorities. There's laws. You have to learn the laws, when you're allowed, when you're not allowed. Now listen to this story. Shalach le Rabbi Yoshua ben Korcha, Chometz ben Yain. Chachamim, they used to speak in a very interesting language. He sent him a letter, the vinegar, the son of the wine. Your father was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he wrote the Zohar, holy man, and you became such a rotten person. You're turning Jews into the Romans, so you became vinegar. You're not a wine like your father. עד מתי אתה מוסר עמו של אלוקינו להריגה? Until when you're going to be responsible for Jews going to die? So he sent him a letter back. I'm cleaning the farm from all the thorns. The vineyards have a lot of thorns. The grapes will not grow good. I'm trying to prevent vinegar. I'm trying to clean the thorns, right? שלח יבוא בעל הכרם ויחלה את הקוצים. They were afraid that the Romans will put their hand on the letters. Then he's going to come to him. Oh, you're betraying the kingdom? We'll kill you also. So they had to speak with hints. So he told him, let the owner of the vineyards clean the thorns. It's not your job. Which means leave it to Hashem. He knows who steals and who doesn't. He'll take care of them. One day, the son of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai walked in the market. Remember, he's a massive person. One Jew came to him and say, vinegar, the son of the wine, in his face. Imagine the rabbi goes like this, and he comes to him in the street. So he says, if this Jew have the guts to speak to me, like Talmid Chacham like me, in a way like this in the street, must be that he's wicked. A righteous Jew don't have the guts to speak like this. So he said, if he's wicked, I will turn him into the Romans also. For sure he makes damages to other Jews. He called up the guards. They took that Jew. They took him to prison. Then after he relaxed from the insult, he started to regret that he turned the Jew into the Romans. So he started, you know how it is. You made a mistake and you eat your hearts. So he ran right away to find him, to take him out. But he didn't find him. They already moved him to another place. So he said that verse, Shomer piv ulshono, shomer mitzarot nafsho. Put a guard on your mouth, you'll save your life. That guy was a chutzpah. Look where he is now. And then he started to cry, because he knew that he was wrong, because just the guy insulted him, he turned him into the Romans. Then people came to him and said, Rabbi, don't feel bad. Don't worry. This guy and his son raped a married woman on Yom Kippur. We saw it. You did good. The real story, it's in the Talmud. He says he had a huge stomach. He went like this. Be happy, my stomach. Be happy. Even when you have a doubt, you are right. Needless to say, when you know for sure they deserve to die, turn them into the Goyim. And he say, when I will die, I guarantee that this fat will not see any worms. And when a person dies, right away the worms make a party. The snakes, the rats. You don't want to know what's going on over there. So, now here comes the proof. Listen to this good now. Did you hear about the surgery called liposuction? People that don't want to go on a diet. They don't have time for the gym every morning, They eat. Some people don't eat a lot. They just naturally don't lose weight, metabolism, whatever you call it. So, what do? They go, they pay $10,000. By the end of the day, they 20 pounds less. Some people died in that surgery. It's very dangerous surgery. It looks like nothing. They put like a special pipe under the skin and they begin to suck all the fat. And then they have a bucket of fat. That's what it is by the end of the surgery. For whatever reason, they have complications sometimes, and people died in the middle. The Gemara says like this: even though he knew that this person was such a wicked person, his heart did not give him a rest. He still felt bad that he turned him in. Before he died, they made a surgery on his stomach. Now listen to this. Ashkeyu sama deshinta. They put him to sleep by anesthesia. This is 2,000 years ago. Here, right in front of you. Sama deshinta, a drug that puts you to sleep. That's the word of the Gemara. Ve'ailu lebeta deshisha. They took him into a special room, sterilized, all marble. Why marble? Marble is the most sterilized material in the world. Nothing is easier to clean than marble. You clean anything else, you still have germs. You clean marble, it's perfectly clean. Surgeries are being done on marbles. Special stone marble. Okay. So they took him to a special room with marble. Opened his stomach. They made a surgery. And took out of him 2 large buckets of fat. Liposuction, 2,000 years ago. They take credit here in universities that they invented that surgery. 2,000 years ago, in the Talmud. 2 buckets of fat. Think about it. Then, they left those buckets in the month of Tammuz. Boiling, August, September, in Israel. 110 degrees, 100 degrees, put fat like this from a body of a person, what's going to happen an hour later? Worms, anything you can think of. Forget about the smell.
Cosmetic, here they use the fat for cosmetic.
Yeah? Yes. All right. Very good. I cannot eat breakfast tomorrow because of you now. All right. All right. And it did not smell. The month of Tammuz, and it did not smell. Listen good now. And there were pieces of skin, of flesh, red skin, mixed with the fat. It's not only liquid. It comes with pieces of meat. And it did not smell. So the Gemara says, you see, the word of this tzaddik came through 100%. What did he say before he died? He was holding his stomach. He said, when I'll die, no worms will touch you. Why? All these Jews that I turned in, I'm 100% right. Just imagine if one of them didn't deserve to die. It's murder, turning in. So this is it. Now, I didn't tell you the story because of the story. I just wanted to get to that point in white here. You see? I marked it with lines. One discovery, first, that they were able to, they had anesthesia. They put people to sleep and cut their stomach open. So Dr. Morton, with all the respect, is not the first one. Second, they had liposuction surgeries. And they already knew the advantage of doing it on marble. 3 different things that we only know in this century. But the Chachamim were able to do it. King David. Gemara says King David used to make surgeries on his soldiers and remove the splint. Tchol. It's called in English splint. He removed the splint out of their body and they can run forever without getting tired. Days they can run. And now, since you run and you're not getting tired, what happened to your feet? It rubbed off, right? So he used to make a cut. He took a razor blade and they used to make cuts in the feet, eliminate the nerve system, that they don't feel any pain. They run on fire, on thorns, everything. The legs is bleeding. They don't feel anything. Because this is in the middle of the war. There's no time to rest. Number 1, nobody in the world today knows how to make a surgery to remove splint without killing the person. The tchol. David HaMelech was able to remove it 3,000 years ago, to remove the spleen. And to make cuts in the nerve system in the feet, that to eliminate the pain, that nobody feels the pain. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, Rabbi, the president of Israel, started to lose his eyesight. He couldn't see. He came to one of the Chachamim, he gave him a special paste. He said, put it in the back of your head before you go to sleep. By tomorrow morning, it's going to enter your brain, slowly, and by tomorrow morning, you'll be able to see. So guess what happened? In the morning, he got up, he didn't need glasses. No contact lens, no laser surgery. In the morning, he got up, he was able to see. That's why he didn't need glasses. All right, now let's give another example. What's the size of one germ? On one, the size of it's 2 micron on 1/2 of a micron, which means 1,000th of a millimeter. 1 millimeter divided by 1,000, this is the size of one chaydak, germ. 1. On 1 millimeter, you have 2,000 chaydakim, 2,000 germs. On 1 millimeter, 1 centimeter, you have 20,000 germs on 1 centimeter. How many? 50,000 in 1 inch. Take like a little line of 1 inch, 50,000 germs can stand on 1 inch. Okay, now pay attention good. In 1680, the year 1680, Anthony van Leeuwenhoek developed the first microscope, invented a microscope. He used to magnify everything by 200 times. So that means now you see it 200 times bigger. And he was able for the first time to see little microscopic creatures are moving. They're moving. With a microscope he was able to see chaydakim are moving. Now, we're almost done. We're almost finished. A little bit more patience. Then, for the first time, only in the second half of the 19th century, they started to realize that those microscopic creatures that moves are able to transfer disease from one person to another. Then, Louis Pasteur from France, about 100 years ago, everybody knows Pasteur, pasteurized milk. Louis Pasteur invented a medicine for rabies, kalevet. Very famous. Not that many people know that Louis Pasteur was a Jew. His real Jewish name was Chaim. He was going to yeshiva to learn. And soon you're going to see something interesting about him. But he was the one who discovered that if you heat milk in 80 degrees Celsius, it's enough to kill all the germs inside and pasteurize the milk, and then you can keep the milk a lot longer. Plus, if you want to use a knife, you burn it, then it doesn't transfer the disease from one person to the other. Before that, they used to use the same knife in surgeries, and many people were dying, and they didn't see the connection. They didn't know there's germs. Use this knife, clean it, wash it, and use it somebody else. And many people were dying, and they didn't see the connection. Then, by the way, that you know the brilliance of our body, when a person has a sickness, a disease, he has high fever. Why? Why the symptom of the body? Always fever, high fever, because it burns the germs, it kills them. The extra 2-3 degrees in the body, it's already too hot for them. They cannot stand it and they die. And that's cure the person. So sometimes we say, put something on him that he won't be hot. Not necessarily, it's good. It's good to be hot for a few hours. It kills all the germs. All right, now, let's see what Chazal says. Now, listen to this. It's amazing, amazing. This is all 2,000 years old. Chazal says, Lo yishte adam min hakos. A person will not drink from a glass and will give it to his friend to drink from the same glass. This is 2,000 years ago, not 100 years ago when they discovered that. 2,000 years ago. In the wheel the tzava'ah of Rabbi Eliezer, before he died, he wrote in his will. Why? Why not to transfer from mouth to mouth the glass? Shema yesh lo choli begufo, maybe he has a sickness in his body, and it will come from his mouth into the leftover of the cup, and when his friend will drink from that cup, he will get the sickness of the first one. This is 2,000 years ago. Nobody gave them the credit. Which means, even if this germs is not active in the first person's body, they already knew that by transfer to a new body, it could come back to be active and to make the person sick. This is another source in Masechet Avodah Zarah. What's page 21? Amar Shmuel. Shmuel is one of the Amoraim, the Chachamim. Petza shenotzar mimakat barzel, a wound from iron or metal, wound that was done from a metal, like nail or anything like that, is life risk. And you must be mechalel Shabbat to save this person. You must violate the rules of Shabbat because it's life risk. 2,000 years ago. Only recently they found tetanus and all these things. It's very, very recent. They say in Shabbat, to be mechalel Shabbat, come on. If you got cut by metal, right away, there's no time now for Shabbat. It's a life risk. Why? Because in the metal, you have those germs that call tetanus. And the rust of the metal can become fatal for the life of a person. What happened? It makes the person paralyzed. A week later, he begins to feel that parts of his face numbed, and then by the time he realizes, it's too late. If he doesn't get a shot within 72 hours, God forbid, if you ever get cut by a nail, or a nail goes into your feet, or even something that looks not really so important, a little cut in the finger, there are thousands of germs on that edge of that piece, the metal. If it's a little bit rusty, even a drop of a rust, don't dare to take a risk. It's 1 second shot in the shoulder and it's over. If you're willing to take the risk, chas v'shalom, it can lead to death. And this is something that the Chachamim knew 2,000 years ago. Then in another place in the Talmud, Masechet Baba Metzia, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Kasa de Charashin velot Kasa de Poshrin. This is in Aramaic. So just before I finish, I will show you two more slides and we finish if you have questions. The Gemara says, drink, it's better to drink a glass of the black magic. The Goyim used to make all kinds of magics, kishufim. It's better to drink their poison than to drink water that did not boil. This is 2,000 years ago, before Louis Pasteur. If you boil the water, you're safe. If the water never been boiled, remember, they didn't have faucet and filters like today. They used to drink from wells and from lakes, from rivers. So all kinds of germs in the water. Before you drink it, the Chachamim say, make sure you boil it. If not, you better off drink black magic spell or something that they're going to do. It's better than to drink water that were not boiled. And the Gemara says, what we just said, it's in metal utensils, glasses that were made from metal or iron. But if it's in ceramic, it's not so dangerous, because they already knew the differences between materials. And if you boiled it, it doesn't matter what cup you use. Once it's boiled, it's 100% safe. This is Gemara in Baba Metzia, page 29. One of the most important discoveries in history is the vaccine. Louis Pasteur. Vaccine. And Louis Pasteur, thanks to his invention, they saved tens of millions of people in the world. People were dying like crazy everywhere. He invented the first medicine he invented was for rabies, for kalevet. Then for other sicknesses. In the book called Mavo She'arim, it's a book that was written in a generation of Louis Pasteur in France, there is a testimony from his close friends, Rabbi Dr. Israel Michael Rabinowitz, a very close friends of Louis Pasteur. He wrote in a book that Pasteur came to one of the shiurim that they learned in the Gemara, in the Talmud, and they came to the Gemara that I'm going to show you in a minute. And he got his idea to start his research by reading the Gemara in Masechet Yuma, page Pei Daled. And this is what the Gemara says. Mi sheneshacho kelev shoteh. Someone who just got bit by a sick dog. Soon we're going to see what does it mean, a sick dog. You feed him, you inject to him, that's the right word, you inject to him from the liver of the same dog. It's not kosher to put from the liver of the dog to a body of a Jew. It's not kosher. But if the Talmud said this is what you do to save the person, that means his life is in a risk here. You don't think about kosher when the life is in a risk. And the Talmud says something else. Who is that sick dog? Dog that have rabies have 5 symptoms. One is his mouth is always open. Second, saliva are dripping constantly. Third, his ears are down, not up like all the dogs. They fall down. Third. Fourth, his tail falls down in between his legs. Most dogs, it comes straight. Over here, it falls down. And the fifth, he walked in the sides of the road crooked. Two legs, the front are a little bit to the left, and the back a little bit to the right, and he always walks in the side of the road. If you see a dog like this, stay away from this dog. It's a life risk. If this dog beat you, they have to take from his liver and inject into your body. This is what he heard, Louis Pasteur. And he became very famous after the Gemara did 90% for him. Of course, he didn't write it in his research that the idea came from there, but his close friend, Dr. Rabinowitz, he wrote it in his book. And what did they find? After taking from the germs from the liver, you know how what's vaccine? They take the same germs, negative, and the doctor explained me that they have 2 kinds of vaccines, active and not active. Tetanus is not active. Some vaccines is active, that's why it's dangerous. Sometimes you come to get a vaccine not to get a sickness, in the end the vaccine makes you sick. If they put maybe too much or something, all of a sudden it creates a disease. But tetanus, there's nothing to be afraid because they're all dead. Any questions before we finish? For what we've seen or in different topics? Yes.
So, what time do we, ערב פסח בבוקר, באיזה שעה בדיוק אנחנו צריכים להיות?
It should be 6-ish, 6:30, 6:35, something like that. Look at the calendar, when is the sunrise?
Which bracha do we do for the Chama?
Which bracha? I'll show you which bracha, 1 second. עושה מעשה בראשית. עושה מעשה, ברוך אתה השם אלוקינו מלך העולם, עושה מעשה בראשית. Once every 28, it's a very rare bracha.
After sunrise?
No, right in the sunrise. If it's 6:35,
wake up at 6:30?
yeah, that's the whole thing.
That's okay.
If you didn't, if for whatever reason you didn't get up, you have 3 hours from the sunrise that you can still make a bracha. After 3 hours, you're not allowed to make bracha anymore.
What about the Yom Shishi when you do Kiddush on the wine cup? You drink first and you give to everybody else?
No.
And you pour it into
No, we pour it. The way I do it, I make Kiddush on a cup. I have another cup which is half full. I prepare in advance. Once I make the Kiddush, I spill a little bit quickly to the other cup, then I drink, and from the new cup I give it to the guest. It's very stupid to let the guest drink from your mouth. Why? Many of them are embarrassed. You put them on the spot. They're embarrassed. You hand it to them, and they're not going to drink. First of all, no, you don't have to drink from the wine.
What about your wife?
It's enough you hear the blessing, that's it. You don't have to taste from the wine. The only reason we taste from the wine to show that we love the mitzvah. We want to really do it ourselves. But technically, if you didn't taste from the wine, you count as a kiddush. Yes. If you have people that are not Shomer Shabbos in your table, you have to make sure that you bring cooked wine, pasteurized wine, not real wine. It has to be mevushal, pasteurized, mevushal. Grape juice, they pasteurize anyway, because if not, after a few days, it's going to be spoiled. So all grape juice are automatically pasteurized. So grape juice is not a problem. If Mechalel Shabbat move the wine, real wine, like in a restaurant, they bring the thin bottles.
אפילו יהודי שמחלל?
Yeah, יהודי שמחלל שבת,
But
יהודי.
most of the wines today are מבושל.
Not true.
No?
Only the thin ones are always cooked. The thin bottles, like they serve in a restaurant, because the goy come in a fancy restaurant, the goy pour it to the cup. But the thick one, the kedem, thick ones, they're not mevushal. Because they're not serving bottles like this in restaurants. There's no...
But you're allowed to have goy at your Shabbat table or Chag table?
Better not to. What for? What does it symbolize, Shabbat and Passover? Passover symbolized that finally we got rid of the goyim that choking us. Now we bring them into the table of Passover?
No, because
what did we do by that?
People left Egypt at the same time as the Jews.
The goyim that left? No, they were converts already. Moshe converted them.
Not one after at Har Sinai, but when they left Egypt, there was a lot of people. Not only
Moshe
Jews.
converted them right away, as soon as they came out. But you see that they came out because they had emunah in Hashem. And still, by the way, it wasn't the right move to do, because the Torah speaks against Moshe for doing it. They made the golden calf, and all the problems that we have today, the Zohar say, comes from these converts. By the way, the Torah says that before Mashiach come, the descendants of the Erev Rav, the converts, the Egyptian converts, will control the government in Israel. You can see in the Knesset who sits over there, and you understand.
Why are we paying $2 million for the Pope to have
For 2 million for?
Security?
6 million. For the Pope. How are you going to bring the Pope to Israel? You know how much security you need?
What's in the Quran? Why are we spending?
We don't need. We're dumb. This is the way we are. We're dumb. We think we're smart, but we're dumb. They try to look nice. Politics. They try to look nice to the Christians.